Imagine this. You're asleep in your home with your husband and your little boy. You're 8 months pregnant, just weeks away from welcoming a new life. And then someone comes through your door. Minutes later, 3 lives are gone, and a 4th never had a chance to take its first breath. This isn't a horror movie. This really happened. Emily Morris, her husband Daniel, and their 6-year-old son Ethan were brutally beaten to death in their own home. Detectives found no forced entry, nothing stolen, just a single bloody handprint that didn't belong to anyone inside the house. 13 years later, the case remains unsolved. Who killed this family? And why? Stick around, because the details of this crime will leave you chilled to the bone and you might just have a theory the detectives missed. Full story. It was supposed to be the kind of evening every young family dreams about. March 17, 2012, a mild spring night in the quiet suburbs of Greenville, Ohio. The Morris family had finally settled into their new home just 2 weeks earlier. It wasn't a mansion, but to Emily and Daniel, it was everything they had worked for, a cozy, safe place to raise their growing family. Emily Morris, 29, heavily pregnant with their second child, spent most of that Saturday folding tiny pink baby clothes in the nursery. She had picked out the name Grace for her baby girl and had been daydreaming about holding her for the first time. She even sent a late afternoon text to her sister that read, "Grace won't stop kicking today. She's gonna be a fighter like her daddy." Downstairs, Daniel, 32, had just come home from his construction job. He was exhausted, but there was a lightness about him that evening. He decided to fire up the backyard grill, cooking burgers while their 6-year-old son, Ethan, chased fireflies with his new toy flashlight. Neighbors would later recall the faint sound of a child's laughter drifting through the evening air. From the outside, it was the picture of happiness. But inside that house, something else was lingering, a sense of being watched. Around 8:30 p.m., as Emily stepped out onto the back porch to call Ethan in for dinner, she paused. Across the street, a figure stood half hidden beneath a street lamp, too far away to see clearly, too still to be casual. At first, she thought it was just a neighbor out for a late stroll. But when she glanced back a second later, the figure was gone. She brushed it off, not wanting to worry Daniel, and they continued their night. Dinner was filled with laughter, Ethan telling silly stories from kindergarten, Daniel teasing him about eating too many fries. They sat around the table planning the next day, maybe a trip to the park, maybe finally setting up the crib for Grace. At 9:45 p.m., they began their bedtime routine. Ethan refused to sleep without his favorite stuffed bear, a small brown one named Mr. Buttons. Emily kissed his forehead and whispered, "You're going to be the best big brother in the world." Upstairs, Daniel closed the windows and locked the doors, just as he did every night. But one lock, the sliding back door, didn't fully latch. Whether they noticed or not, police could never later determine. At 10:15 p.m., the house went dark, save for a soft nightlight glowing in Ethan's room. A lullaby played quietly on his music box, filling the upstairs hall with its soft, chiming tune. Emily lay in bed, one hand on her belly, feeling Grace's gentle kicks. She drifted towards sleep beside Daniel, believing this house was their sanctuary. But outside, someone watched from the shadows. A neighbor's dog barked once, twice, then stopped abruptly. A distant crunch of footsteps on gravel echoed faintly in the night air. A car alarm a block away went off, then silenced. Inside, the Morris family slept peacefully, completely unaware that before dawn, their dream home would become a scene of unthinkable horror. The sun rose over Greenville like any other Sunday morning. But inside the Morris home, something was terribly wrong. By 8:30 a.m., a concerned neighbor, Mrs. Lillian Carter, noticed that Ethan had not come outside to play. Normally, the energetic 6-year-old would be out with his toy trucks as soon as daylight broke. Instead, the house remained eerily still, blinds drawn, not a single sound coming from within. Lillian recalled later that she felt a strange heaviness in the air that morning, like the house itself was holding its breath. She knocked once, twice. No answer. By 9:15 a.m., her unease grew enough that she called the police for a welfare check. At 9:42 a.m., Officer Mark Daniels of the Greenville Police Department pulled up to the Morris home. The front yard looked ordinary, the bike leaning against the porch railing, the grill still out on the deck, toys scattered in the grass. Everything about the scene whispered normal family life. But as Officer Daniels approached the front door, a detail stopped him cold. The door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open slowly, calling out, "Police Department. Anyone home?" Silence answered him, thick and suffocating. The moment he stepped inside, a chill swept over him. Breakfast dishes were still on the kitchen table, untouched. A carton of orange juice sat open, spoiling in the morning air. A plate with a half-eaten burger rested on the counter, as if time had simply stopped. Officer Daniels made his way down the hallway toward the living room. That's when he noticed the trail. Small droplets of blood, leading toward the stairs. Fresh enough to glisten under the morning light seeping through the blinds. His voice wavered as he radioed in backup. Possible 187. We may have a family down, he whispered, hand trembling as he unholstered his weapon. The first room he entered was Ethan's. There, he found the boy's small frame curled up in bed, his stuffed bear Mr. Buttons clutched tight to his chest. His lifeless eyes stared blankly toward the ceiling. A soft lullaby still played from the music box, its cheerful melody now a haunting soundtrack to the horror before him. Backup arrived within minutes, and together, officers ascended the stairs. The house seemed to grow colder with every step. In the master bedroom, the sight awaiting them would scar every responder for life. Daniel lay sprawled across the floor, his body beaten savagely, his face barely recognizable. Blood soaked the carpet beneath him, and next to his outstretched hand was Emily, still wearing her maternity nightgown. She had fallen against the bed, her belly exposed, the unmistakable signs of labor evident. Witnesses later testified that it appeared Emily had gone into labor during the assault, the sheer terror and pain forcing her unborn daughter, Grace, to come too soon. Neither mother nor child survived the brutal attack. The room told a story of chaos: overturned lamps, broken picture frames, bloody handprints on the wall as if someone had tried desperately to crawl away. And yet, no forced entry, no signs of robbery. Whoever had done this hadn't come for valuables. They came for the Morrises. The message that chilled detectives. As detectives began documenting the scene, one investigator noticed something strange scrawled in red across the bedroom mirror. At first, they thought it was blood. It wasn't. It was lipstick. We were watching you. This was no random home invasion. It was something darker, something personal. Someone had stalked this family, waited for the perfect moment, and struck with unthinkable cruelty. Neighbors later told police they'd seen a dark SUV idling near the Morris home the previous night around 10:30 p.m. But no one had gotten a clear look at the driver. Who were we? How long had they been watching? And why target a kind, loving family expecting a new life? The Morris house, once filled with dreams of the future, had become a silent crime scene drenched in death and unanswered questions. But one thing was certain: the killer wasn't finished playing games. Greenville was never the same after the Morris murders. A quiet suburban town where neighbors never locked their doors suddenly became a place of whispers and fear. Parents clutched their children tighter. Porch lights stayed on through the night. Local news stations played the story on a loop, each newscast repeating the same chilling words found at the crime scene. We were watching you. Who was watching? And how many more families might be next? At 10:42 p.m., a camera 2 streets away caught a black SUV circling the neighborhood. It passed the Morris home 4 times before stopping for exactly 11 minutes with its headlights off. But the most unsettling detail: through the grainy footage, a silhouette in the passenger seat appeared to be holding a camera. Someone had been filming the Morris family that night. Was this part of a larger ritual? A planned message? Or a sick trophy collection for a predator that had done this before? While combing through Daniel Morris's phone records, detectives made a startling discovery. Just 72 hours before the murders, Daniel received a voicemail from an unknown number. "Daniel, it's happening again. I can't stop it this time. Protect Emily." Detective Laura Hayes, lead investigator, played it on loop for hours, convinced she'd heard the voice before but unable to place it. Meanwhile, Emily's best friend came forward with a chilling revelation. 2 weeks before her death, Emily confided that she felt someone was watching her through their windows at night. Daniel brushed it off, thinking it was just pregnancy nerves. Now, it seemed Emily had been right all along. On day 4 of the investigation, a forensic sweep of the Morris home uncovered something horrifying. A small, wireless camera hidden inside a vent in the nursery pointed directly at the crib where baby Grace was supposed to sleep. The realization hit detectives like a freight train. Whoever killed the Morris family wasn't just watching them that night. They had been watching them for weeks, maybe months. And the footage? Gone. Someone had taken it with them after the murders, as if this whole ordeal had been part of some grotesque show for an unseen audience. 2 witnesses came forward with separate accounts of seeing a masked man in a dark hoodie near the Morris home that night. Both swore they saw him talking to a second person inside the SUV. This wasn't one killer. This was a team, and their message on the mirror "We were watching you," suddenly felt less like a taunt and more like a warning. A declaration that there were multiple predators, and they had no plans to stop. Just as detectives began closing in on potential suspects, an envelope arrived at the Greenville Police Department addressed to Detective Hayes. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It showed another happy suburban family, a couple with 2 young children smiling in their front yard. On the back of the photo, written in the same red lipstick as on the Morris mirror, were 4 words: "You can't save them." The nightmare wasn't over. The killers were already choosing their next victims. Detective Laura Hayes sat in a darkened office, staring at her laptop. Cybercrime experts had just cracked an encrypted USB drive found near the Morris home, hidden beneath a flower pot in the backyard. What they found inside was far more disturbing than anything they imagined. A folder titled "The Game." Inside were dozens of videos, each one showing different families in their homes, unaware they were being watched. Some were of the Morris family. Others were people the police didn't recognize, families from different towns, different states, possibly different years. Each file had a countdown timer on it, and when the timer reached 0, the family vanished from their home records. Forever. This wasn't random murder. This was planned entertainment for someone watching. It read like a set of instructions for hunters. Choose a family. Watch them for 30 days. Make them believe they're safe. On the 30th night, end the game. The last line froze Hayes' blood. There are no winners. Only the audience. Who was this audience? And how many people were paying to watch these real-life games play out? Just as detectives were processing the horror of what they'd found, another break-in occurred, this time at a different Greenville home. A terrified father reported seeing a masked figure standing outside his daughter's bedroom window at 2:14 a.m. When he grabbed his shotgun and ran outside, he saw the man jump into a black SUV and speed away. The description matched the same SUV from the Morris murders. And inside the family's mailbox, a small red note card with the number 29 scrawled on it. The countdown had started for another innocent family. Forensics traced the USB drive to a dark web live streaming site. When they hacked in, they found an active chat room filled with anonymous users placing baits, leaving comments like, "Who's next? Hope they last longer than the last family." Betting $500 on the father going first. Detectives realized the killings weren't just thrill murders. They were a twisted form of online entertainment, broadcast for paying viewers worldwide. And every time a family was chosen, the countdown began, and hundreds of strangers watched their final days, until the game ended in blood. Detective Hayes stood outside the newest target's home, heart racing. She knew they had less than 29 hours before the killers returned. But as she scanned the dark street, a chill ran down her spine. A cell phone in her pocket buzzed with a blocked call. When she answered, a distorted voice whispered, "Detective Hayes, you're watching the wrong house." Before she could respond, the call ended, and from across the street, she saw it. A camera lens glinting in the shadows, pointed directly at her. This wasn't just a hunt anymore. Now, she was part of the game. The clock struck 11:59 p.m. Detective Hayes sat in her unmarked car, eyes fixed on the Miller family's quiet suburban home, the next targets in this twisted game. She had backup units stationed around the block. But despite all the police presence, there was an unshakable silence in the air, like the calm before a violent storm. At 12 o'clock midnight, her phone pinged. A live video notification appeared on the dark web link they had hacked earlier. It was titled, "The Night of Blood, Live." And the video feed? It wasn't showing the Miller home. It was showing her. Before she could react, the house lights flickered and died. The entire street went black. Hayes drew her gun and sprinted toward the Miller home, shouting for backup, but the radios suddenly went dead, jammed by a signal blocker. From the darkness, a voice echoed through a distorted speaker. "Welcome to your first game, detective." The sound of footsteps circled her, fast, methodical, like predators playing with prey. Then a scream shattered the silence, not from the Millers, but from behind her squad car. She spun around just in time to see a masked figure dragging an officer into the shadows, a flash of silver glinting in their hand. Hayes realized too late she wasn't stopping the killers tonight. She was their target. Forced inside the Miller home, Hayes found it eerily empty, every clock in the house stuck at 12 o'clock, like time itself had stopped. The walls were covered in photographs of the Morris family, the Millers, and now, photos of her. Pictures of her apartment, her car, her morning jogs. Pinned to the center of the wall was a note. "Every game needs a final player." Suddenly, the TV switched on, showing a live feed from the dark web stream. Thousands of viewers were watching her every move, their comments flooding in. Finally, the detective joins the game, betting she doesn't last 5 minutes. And then, a door upstairs slammed shut. Heart pounding, Hayes crept up the staircase, gun raised. In the hallway stood a tall, masked figure holding a blooded axe. But as he slowly removed the mask, Hayes froze. It was Officer Daniels, one of her own backup team. The same officer she had trusted for months on the case. Daniels smirked, whispering, "You think this was about murder? No. This is about control. About power. And everyone watching loves a good betrayal." Behind him, another masked figure appeared, camera in hand, filming the entire scene. The audience wasn't just watching a hunt anymore, they were about to watch a slaughter. Daniels lunged forward, the axe swinging as Hayes fired her gun. Screams echoed through the house, blood splattered against the wall. But in the chaos, another figure grabbed Hayes from behind, dragging her toward the basement door. Before she was thrown down the stairs, Daniels leaned close and whispered chillingly, "The game doesn't end tonight, detective. It ends when the audience says it does." The door slammed shut, locking her in total darkness. And above her, the chant of thousands of viewers from the live stream echoed through hidden speakers. "Finish the game. Finish the game." The basement was pitch black, the smell of damp concrete and blood heavy in the air. Detective Hayes sat against the cold wall, hands tied, heart pounding in her ears. The only light came from a flickering screen mounted high on the wall, showing the live feed of thousands of viewers still watching, waiting. Suddenly, the distorted voice of the game master came through a hidden speaker. "Congratulations, detective. You survived longer than most. But every game must have an ending." On the screen, a countdown clock appeared. 5 o'clock. Below it, text flashed in blood red. "Audience vote, live or die." The basement door creaked open, and Daniels entered, dragging another figure-bound and terrified Miller child. Hayes screamed, "Let him go." Daniels only smirked. "You still don't get it. This isn't about one family, detective. It's a series, a show, and every show needs a shocking finale. Tonight, you choose, save the boy, or yourself." The viewers' comments flooded the live chat. "Make her choose, this is better than TV. Blood or redemption." Hayes realized the killers weren't just murderers. They were entertainers, streaming real-life horror for an audience of thousands who craved blood. Then, another figure entered the game master. Wearing a sleek black mask and voice changer, they exuded command over the room. But when they removed the mask, Hayes gasped. It was Captain Morrison, her own superior officer, the man leading the entire investigation. Who else could control the narrative? Who else could make sure every lead went nowhere? The game needed a hero and a villain, Hayes. I made sure you were both. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Morrison leaned in, whispering, "This city is broken, detective, and people love watching it burn." With 1 minute left on the clock, Morrison slid a gun across the floor toward Hayes. "Kill me, detective, and you become the hero they all want. Or save the boy, and watch thousands of viewers turn you into their next victim." Hayes' hands trembled as she grabbed the gun. The live comments scrolled faster. "Do it, save the kid. We want blood." The boy cried softly. Morrison smirked, arms wide, waiting for her decision. At the final second, a single gunshot shattered the silence. The live feed blurred, static overtaking the screen as police sirens wailed outside. When the feed returned, the basement was empty. No Hayes, no Morrison, just the words flashing on screen. The game isn't over. The video ended, leaving millions of viewers and your audience wondering, was Hayes dead or alive? Was the game master truly gone? Or had the audience just chosen the next season's killer? Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more true crime mysteries every week.